Okay, let's unpack this. We're digging into something pretty paradoxical about modern life. The food we eat right now, it's just fundamentally less diverse than, say, 70 years ago. And what's really striking is this wasn't some slow natural drift. No, it was abrupt, entirely human-made, a result of choices people made. So our mission here in this deep dive is to kind of nail down when those choices happen. We want to trace how this huge push for more food, which was absolutely necessary, also, well, accidentally baked in some serious systemic risk into how we feed the world.
Exactly. And the time frame we really need to zoom in on is those decades right after World War II. I mean, the records are clear. That's when the biggest, fastest drop in crop diversity happened. Globally, it really set the path we're still on.
Right. And this is where it gets complex, ethically speaking. Because this big agricultural shift, it wasn't driven by greed initially, was it? It came from a place of, well, urgent need.
Yeah.
You had a crop scientist trying desperately, to figure out how to grow basic staples rice, wheat on just enormous scale. They needed to stop mass starvation.
Yeah, that's right. And the solution they came up with, what we often call the Green Revolution now, it worked spectacularly well, at least in terms of sheer output. It meant replacing literally thousands of traditional, locally adapted varieties of crops.
Thousands. Wow.
Yeah, thousands. Swapping them out for just a tiny number of new, standardized, super productive strains. These were often plants that needed specific things, like a lot of fertilizer, and many had these dwarfing genes bred into them so they wouldn't fall over from the weight of all the extra grain.
And the result was just unbelievable, agriculturally speaking. Global grain production actually tripled. That context is so important, isn't it? Because that's what allowed the world to handle this unprecedented boom in population.
Exactly. I mean, look at the numbers. Between 1970 and 2020, the human population more than doubled. We basically fed that massive growth spurt using a really, really narrow genetic toolkit. And while we absolutely have to acknowledge how crucial that was for, well, human survival, we also have to look hard at the trade-off now.
Okay, but hang on. If this was so essential to prevent starvation, how did the scientists back then miss the diversity issue? Didn't they see the vulnerability? I mean, surely some standardization is needed for big industrial farming.
Well, yes, some level of standardization helps with mechanization and scale, but the sheer centralization of the genetics involved, that dramatically cranked up the risk. You see, the fascinating and dangerous part is that the very benefit of uniformity, getting those predictable high yields, is also its biggest weakness. The second you rely on just a few genetic blueprints, all those plants share the exact same vulnerabilities. If one plant gets sick from a particular disease...
They all get sick.
Precisely. All of them are potentially vulnerable.
That makes the stakes just terrifyingly high, especially today with the number of people relying on this system. So the main danger of having such a narrow selection of crops is that they might just, well, not be able to handle a specific widespread disaster.
Right. We tend to connect the systemic weakness to three major threats, and they seem to be getting worse. First, disease. Like we said, because the plants are genetically almost identical, a single fungus or bacteria can just rip through a harvest. In traditional systems, some local varieties might have naturally resisted it.
Okay, so disease is one.
Second is pests. Uniform fields are like a buffet for pests. They can quickly adapt to overcome whatever defense the one plant type has, and then there's nothing to stop them across huge areas.
Pests. And the third.
And third, and this is maybe the most urgent one now, climate extremes, those old traditional varieties. They often had built-in adaptations over centuries to local conditions like drought or heat waves in a specific region. These standardized supercrops. They generally lack that deep, localized resilience. That makes them pretty fragile when the climate starts changing rapidly or swinging wildly.
So, wrapping up that trade-off then.
Yeah.
The incredible success of huge-scale uniform crops fed billions helped us manage a doubling population.
A spectacular success in that sense.
Yeah, but that very success created a global food system that's fundamentally fragile because it lacks that biological variety. It's kind of a stunning paradox success breeding massive risk.
That captures it perfectly.
So thinking about how much we rely now on just a very few crops worldwide, wheat, rice, corn being the big ones, here's something complex for you to chew on. What kind of unexpected event, maybe some new super pest we haven't seen, or a sudden catastrophic regional climate shift? What could really test the limits of this super productive but super uniform system? Could something push it past its breaking point? That question, maybe, represents the hidden cost of that agricultural achievement. That's our deep dive for this week.